makes you come up with leadership? How did that develop for you?
My journey and how I got to that word. Learn how to be a servant leader, guide people, help people grow in many aspects.
People want to be in the business that we're in, and the best way to get in is to be able to build that. And I love what you said about raising capital being a whole nother business, because I believe that too. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is Saturday morning, and this is Multifamily Unplugged. I hope that you are having a great weekend and your day is starting out great. If you're new to the show, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Thank anybody who may have invited you or told you about this podcast. I am super excited to always have new people. Hey, if you're looking for us, remember you can find us anywhere on social media, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn. Follow us. We're always bringing out relevant new content for you to learn from, to grow with. This is all about multifamily and what's in the multifamily space. Today, we'll have a little different twist. We're going to talk about hotels. And my guest today is going to be Jen Maldonado from Austin, Texas. So I'm real excited about bringing her in. But one thing I want to ask you first is, what are you intentional about today? What are you really focused on that you need to work on or get done? Whether that be personal or whether that be professional, however that is, and I always say that we don't grow professionally unless we're grown personally. So what are you doing for yourself to work on you to maybe grow a little bit more? Maybe it's education, maybe it's just some downtime for yourself. Maybe it's really just some quiet time thinking about your business and what you need to do to push the ball forward. But I want to remind you just to think about your intentions and to take the action moving forward into those. So let's get started here this morning. I'm excited about our guest. I'm going to bring Jen in. As I said, she's from Austin, Texas. Her newest fund is Invest in Her Spark. So I'm real excited to find out what that's all about. Hey, Jen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Mike.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while, a couple of almost a year.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we've tried to get together a couple of times here, and I had an issue, you had an issue, and so at least we got to get together. So, hey, I always like to know what's the weather like in Austin today?
Right now it is like 90 degrees, but for me, that's amazing. For other people, that's too hot. I'm an
Yeah,
islander, so I love the weather.
yeah. Boy, being in October and being hot still, it's pretty interesting. So, hey,
Yes.
so as I always start these shows, I always ask one question, and I keep saying I'm going to write a book on this one of these days of everybody's answer and what they say. But in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
Leadership.
Okay, leadership.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Um,
Yes.
what makes you come up with leadership? How did that develop for you?
I have to think for a second in on my journey and how I got to that word. I will say that being raised in a blue collar family where my parents were always servicing, right? My dad was a police officer, my mom was a nurse. It was about helping other people and helping other people succeed. I think that I got that as an inheritance from them, where you learn how to be a servant leader, guide people, help people grow in many aspects. And I will say through my entire journey, not only as engineer, but when I retired from engineering, I wanted to creating communities where we foster women, future women generations or generations of future women entrepreneurs and business owners. And I always believe in growing other people. And when you do so, you have to become a better leader, grow as a human being, grows as a person, learn more technical stuff, because that's the only way you can really help other people succeed. And by helping other people, you also get what you want. So I will say that my life, my how I was raised, the actions I have taken have lead me to become a better leader in the different industries I was part on.
It's pretty awesome. I love that. I love the old Zig Ziglar quote, right? If you help enough people get what they want, you'll ultimately get what you want. Really a great model to live by, and it sounds like your environment, you grew up, kind of learning that along the way. So it almost sounds like your parents developed you as a leader.
Yes, yes, it was pretty interesting to where I grew up, right? I was born in a very small town in Arroyo, Puerto Rico, where there's not much things happening, right? You have the option that you go and you get a good job with the government, or you get a good career. And normally, if you want to find a meaningful job for you, you tend to go out. But growing into that environment also exposed me to the regular tradition in the Latino culture, where it's more as a patriarch, right? And the man takes the leadership. I was raised with a lot of men, and I only have two brothers and multiple cousins. And I will say that there was always that combination of competition versus leadership.
Mm,
And for some reason, I was into the competition, but I was more, or it will touch my heart to see other people grow. And growing in that environment, right? It gets very interesting, the dynamics between, regardless gender, but the energy of the masculine energy, the female energy, nurturing versus challenging versus competing. And it was fun for me. It was fun to learn how to overcome many challenges and become the leader of the family and different areas. Of course, we relied a lot in working together as a family, and I think that's something that my parents did very well, Mike, creating an environment where we can expand as human beings. We can learn from each other, recognize our weaknesses and strengths, and support each other in different areas, right?
mm,
I consider myself the leader in the family when it comes to finances, investing, and other different areas. I consider myself leader when it comes to finances, investing, and looking at a problem as a whole problem. But
mm.
when it comes to other areas, I tend to call my brothers and my family members to get their advice, because I recognize their leadership on that area, right?
Yeah, interesting. I love that perspective. That's pretty awesome. So why don't you talk about your background a little bit and, how you got to where you're at today and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I love to share a story about how I become a syndicator and manage millions of dollars in commercial properties, over 200 million as per today.
Good for
I
you.
Yes, it's really fun. I love to do this, but I think it started with a game, right? And many people don't realize that sometimes we play games, and sometimes when we can realize that that game can become our reality, it can lead us to put more focus and do what we do. I remember playing with my brothers and my dad the Monopoly game, and I think that most people has played that game. And it was pretty interesting because as we were playing in Monopoly, my dad was the person always giving the money. So he was the bank. And he felt very good about giving to us. And my brothers, young kids, they were always fighting about which piece they were going to be. And they will always select either the fast car, the canyons, the ward, and all of that. For me, for some reason, I felt very compelled to always pick the hat, Mr. Penny Morgan, right? I'm just gonna call it that way. And how that related is there was a lot of dynamic in the process. I was looking at the Monopoly game and trying to understand how is that you win a game like that. And people say buy four houses and then turn it into a hotel. And for me, it was wasn't able to win in the way that people was telling me to play it. And I read a little bit about Monopoly. At that time, there was no internet, right? That we could find a lot of great information. And I always find myself competing with my brothers, trying to figure out the game. The interesting thing is, at some point, I asked myself, if the game it's about control, who is controlling the entire game? And what I find out is that I needed to figure out how to deal with the finances at the right time to be able to beat my brothers. What does that mean is, while my brothers were competing and how much they were buying, I was focusing on what to buy, what, when, and how to finance it. And what I learned in the process is that as my brothers were getting closer to the areas I have properties, I had the chance to increase the value on that specific area. And what I will do is I will exchange, right, the properties, refinance properties, sell or exchange something with them in order to control a certain period of time where they were landing. And playing that game made me realize the importance of having access to capital, right? And having access to capital would have given me the ability to buy the properties I needed when I needed. And it didn't matter what happened, the probabilities that my brothers were going to land on that specific spot, Mike, it was very likely. And playing that game that way and taking the time to learn how the process worked sparked in me a desire to learn how to work more with the financial side. And I ended up winning the game. And since then, my brothers were not ever to beat me. And every time I play so far, I'm still invincible. But how does that lead to where I am today? I came from a very traditional background. So for me, I was supposed to go and study in school, get a good job, and go out there and make money, earn the money, right? Not make the money work hard for me, but earn the money. And what I did is, with all of these ideas of businesses and finances, I decided to go to school and study industrial engineering. And in my journey, I worked for big companies like Johnson and Johnson and Nestle, and I did very, very well. And I get to the point that there was very little opportunities to keep growing. At least I did a vertical move. I mean, a horizontal move, right? Getting out of engineering, learning the business analytics side, or I could have chose my own path. And based on my experience, I really wanted to have financial freedom. And as I'm going through that journey, Mike, I have the situation where my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And I remember wanting to be there for a long period of time with her, to enjoy it, to be with her just in case that something happened. And the fact that I have to answer to someone, the fact that my time was limited and bound by me having to be in a corporate job, it just triggered a pretty big desire for me on get financial freedom. So I shared this with my brother, my older brother, and I told him what I was dealing with, right? And what I wanted to do. And he recommended me to read what I call the Purple Bible, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's when everything has started with me. And I got that Purple Bible and I read it. And in a matter of a week, Mike, I hire a coach with Rich Dad Poor Dad because I knew that I needed help. I knew I didn't know anything about real estate, and I knew that this was my path to, or my journey to achieve financial freedom. And that's where I get from being in a corporate job to having the desire to achieve financial freedom. And I had to hire a coach and mentors in order to learn and understand and help me move forward with the different goals I have in life.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I love what you said about your dad being the bank, right? There was a
Yep.
lesson in that, right? About finance, that your dad controlled the finances with the bank. And that's where you got that idea that hey, if I got my finances under control, I'm going to have more control and be able to lead the pack, right? So
Correct.
funny story. So, and I always tell this story when I talk, but I say, I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs or real estate professionals, didn't know anything about it. But I remember at 8 years old, sitting on the side of a swimming pool. We were on family vacation and we were at a resort. And I remember asking my dad about all the rooms around the pool. And he said, oh, people come here and they pay the owner money to stay here, just like us. And that's where I realized, hey, I want to be the owner, right? Collecting
Yes.
the money. So that's how, that's that whole, that little bit of knowledge that you got somewhere along the line. And then the other thing that you said that was really interesting was having access to capital. And what, I think that, the business that you're in, the business that I'm in today, we're a function of the capital that we have. And we don't get anything done unless we have capital. So what's that like for you today, to raise capital and to be able to buy more assets and take care of your investors at a higher level?
It's very rewarding. And I'm going to share with you two stories, Mike. One of them, the rewarding part is sometimes you have these investors that they're learning and they might not be high net worth individuals, but you give them the opportunity to grow their money. And at the end of every project, sometimes those investors call me and I have these lady that she say, Jennifer, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to
Mm,
trust in someone again, right?
yeah.
With my money, with my heart and money. And this is a more mature lady that she just have this money sitting. She want to retire, but she didn't know how to grow her money. And putting the money in the regular stock bonds doesn't make it for her because it was a little bit late to grow the amount of money she needed to retire. And to create opportunities for women like her, it just fulfilled my heart. And
Mm,
that's how it feels for me. It becomes very meaningful to have that ability and that opportunity and create this opportunity for them. And the second thing too for me is the journey on how I become a capital raiser for my own projects and business partners, right? When I was playing Monopoly to my dad, I make a comment like I wanted to buy hotels, like Donald Trump will do. Nothing about politics, don't care about politics. And he started laughing and he told me, you will need a lot of money for that. And I will say that for many years, I have on my brain, I have to save money. And I will have to say this, I didn't have everything together to save the amount of money I needed, right? I was living on my own in California and Los Angeles, which is very expensive. It gives very little room for you to save money. And I remember those words from my dad, and I'm like, maybe I can never do this real estate thing because I don't have money. And as I'm going through that journey, there was two events that happened, two deals that changed my story. And the first one is as I was trying to move to a new home, I didn't have enough money for the down payment of a home, regular single family home. So one of the first things I did, and it was my first deal, I took the money from my 401k and I deposited in my property because it was a duplex. So I was living in one side and renting in the other one. But after that point, I run out of money and I have the brilliant idea to retire from engineering with very little cushion of money saved, which would create a pretty challenging moment for me because either you make it or you break it. And through the process, I went to different real estate events. I didn't stop. I'm like, I need to make this happen. I don't have an option. I don't want to go back to the life I had. And if I do go back, I know I'm going to do it to come back. And that was my two options. There was no other option. And what happened through that process, I heard the word other people's money.
mm,
And I wanted to learn what does that meant. And I was at the point that I invested in a few projects and I lost money. and those rehab projects, right? Because I was learning, I make a lot of mistakes. I invested and trusted in other people that they didn't have everything together. And when I call it everything, they didn't know what they were doing. And for me, those were very valuable, expensive lessons that put me at that margin. But what happened is I knew what I was doing. I just wasn't experienced as them, but I learned from them. And that was my first biggest lesson. And then I found these other projects and I started learning on construction. And one of the investors, active investors, told me, Jen, yes, we still have to raise $2 million for this project. This was to development in the Newport Beach area. And I'm like, I want to learn construction. I want to learn how they do these things and I want to be involved. So he told me, well, the only way, you can get involved, it's by doing actions in the project, going in and dealing with the construction. And also you can bring some people, raise capital, and we can pay you some money for that and you can be a partner. And then when I heard that, I remember taking 1 week, Mike, and sitting with the SEC freaking book, reading on how to do capital raise. And I learned a lot about the rules. And I went ahead and I make a few calls to my my past I will say, like, we were in college together, right? Engineers, doctors, and lawyers. And I give them a call and I talk to them about the deal. I brought my partners and they presented the deal. And what I find out is that raising capital was another business, an entire business that you could be part of it. And as I was learning construction, I also raised $1.2 million for this project specifically. What I did not know is that I had the skills to do it working with my partners. And here's what happened. He was so amazed that I was able to do that in matter of 30 days since I never raised capital. And not only that, the fact that there was an entire sales team that were trying to raise the capital for over 6 months, and they barely raised, like, I think it was like almost $1 million. And I just came in a matter of a week to the 30 days from the moment of raising the capital to the moment of closure. I did $1.2 million. And I just didn't know that was a thing. Right. But what I did know, it was numbers. It was a project that makes sense. It was economy that was telling me that that was the right project at the right time. And it was becoming the bank and working with these experienced people that will allow me to get into the real estate business in a very powerful way.
Yeah, OPM, other people's money, is really, really powerful, right? Because so many people think, oh, I can't get in real estate because I don't have the money, or I'm going to run out of money, right? When, I went to a seminar, my first real estate seminar ever was Robert Allen. And Robert Allen teaches, OPM. But, it was always like, use other people's money to buy a deal, or use your tenant's money to pay down your mortgage, right? So always an interesting strategy. And I think people need to grab a hold of that, because people want to be in the business that we're in. And the best way to get in is to be able to build that. And I love what you said about raising capital being a whole nother business, because I believe that too, right? It's a whole nother sector of the business that everybody who's in this business needs to get good at. So,
yes. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but Robert G. Allen was my mentor.
Oh, was he really?
Yes,
Wow.
dear Bob.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, that's when I actually started raising capital. And he wasn't my mentor for real estate. He was my mentor to start preparing to write a book. But in the process, he talks about other people's money. And I learned and took so many notes from him on that perspective. And he showed me the value and the power and responsibility that it comes when you're raising capital. And I was fascinated. At that moment, I fall in love with what we do, right? Raising capital for real estate projects.
So that's pretty much your job function then, is to raise capital.
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
do raise capital. I do raise capital. It's just for me, that's the fun part. A lot of people say you're crazy. I love raising capital. I love bringing investors to the table. But my main job is actually use my statistical engineer skills. So my main job is to identify certain opportunities in different markets. I
Got it.
go and I look at what's happening in the United States, right? And that's where I stay in the US. I don't do international yet, but I invest in the US and I go and I look at the markets where there is a specific macroeconomy and microeconomy being met. I have these specific criteria I put together. And once that happens in a macro level, I go to the micro level and I identify the different sub markets in every area and I figure out what kind of asset will work on that specific area. That's my
So,
main job as a leader, like to
got it.
identify those trends.
So what are the top two markets that you like today? Moving forward through 24 into 25.
Yes, I still love Phoenix, Arizona. I just changed the type of asset I do in Phoenix, Arizona, in the metro area is what I call. There's still a lot of movement there. There's still a lot of jobs. I know from the multifamily perspective, the market was very challenging right now, especially with too much demand, the prices and rents not getting there. But
Right.
that's where I do my extended stay hotel model, specifically economic. It's a very unique niche on that area. I still love Austin. When I moved in 2021 from Los Angeles to Austin, I figured out that it was still a great market, but there was too many years the market growing crazy due to the movement, and it created a false inflation on it because it just was like growing, but there was not a normal behavior that it was expected. On 2022, I start seeing a little bit of more what they call normalization, right? When we can really take that data and implement it in Austin, people still move to here based and for many reasons, right? From tax advantages, from the growth and health of the economy in Texas. So Texas is still a pretty strong market. You just need to figure out where and what type of asset. I know Vegas is another one. I haven't invested in Vegas. I look at it, but I think it's at this moment it's not the right fit for me, but there's a lot of opportunities. Same as North Carolina, same as South Carolina. So I would say the Carolinas, it's still a good market to look at it. And again, it depends on the asset and it depends the area where you are investing. But for me, it's always been now, and this not always, but it's been Texas so far and Phoenix, Arizona. I do invest in LA with a specific projects, very unique, that have a completely different business model. But besides that, I mean, there's always opportunities everywhere, Mike. You just have to look with different perspective to see where the opportunity is. It takes a
Yeah,
second level of thinking.
100%. So your major focus is in the hotel space, right? And do you develop new hotels or do you buy existing and redevelop them?
Yes. I do buy existing hotels. At this moment, developing a new hotel for the economics and the state air sector is not the best strategy. I know that the bigger names tend to go and buy land and do an entire ecosystem around the hotel that make it profitable enough for them to consider that. I do at this moment, I am focused on extended stay hotels based on what I see in the economy. I still focus in 1 to 4 units, residential multifamily. I stepped back in 2018, 2017 from the big commercial multifamily because it went too out of control, right? I didn't see a lot of sustainability. I don't say that there's no deals out there, don't get me wrong, right? There's still great deals out there that
Yeah.
people can invest on. It's just for me, it was too much work to get the same results. So I do extended stay hotels specifically in the Phoenix metro area. I'm looking at Texas right now and Florida, which is a very unique market too. I still studying the market. It takes me a couple of months before I make decisions about that. But I think that a sweet spot for many people, especially investors who are starting, is between the 1 to 4 units. Not that they cannot go to bigger deals. It's just it give you a lot of what I call training on what it takes to invest in real estate.
Yeah, interesting. So here's what I'd like to know. What is one of your best techniques or systems that you have in place for raising capital and meeting new investors and closing new investors?
Yes, I I never market to for raising capital. Now that I'm growing, I'm getting into that area where we're gonna start marketing and following the marketing process. But in the past, for me, what has been very important is one, networking. It's one of my biggest strategies no matter what. And no, I don't only network in real estate conferences. I go to the other conference, innovations, auctions and wildlife. I was there this past weekend and I met a lot of investors and they're looking to invest back in real estate because as they say, they go and make their money with real estate, maybe buy other businesses and go back to real estate investing, which it tells you a lot about real estate, right?
Right.
Um, the first technique is networking no matter what. And I network very differently. I get introduced to people by the leader because I like to network with the leaders, understand what is that they're doing. Second technique I use, I never make it about me, Mike. And this is why it's so easy for me to connect with people because I don't want to get an investor for getting an investor. I want to work with an investors because they have a need and I want to identify that need because either with me or someone else, they can be helped, right? Is that mentality of servant leader. And I think that a lot of people go out there trying to sell their deals without understanding what an investor need or want and why they
Mm.
want it. And this is when they really get disconnected right away. So my first strategy is networking and ensure that when I'm networking, I understand what this specific person needs. And
Yeah.
based on that, I do that different steps, right, to engage in a relationship with these investors. Most of my funds have been made around friends and family, where I just start helping someone in X or Y, different than real estate. And they know that I do real estate. At some point, they see me doing projects and they just ask me about it and they want to know more. And I educate them in some of the basic concepts of real estate investing. Like, how do you look into a real estate syndication? How
Right.
do you look into a deal? Right. And I just add value to them. So my strategy is about them adding value, helping them achieve their goals. And when people see that, they know you care, right? So there's nothing to sell. It's just they know you do what you do. And good thing about that, once that you complete one project with them, they bring their friends and family too. And
Right.
that's what has been happening for me. The referral factor has been the biggest strategy for me. If you do well, they're going to bring their friends and family. And people that have the money to invest normally know other people that have money to invest. And I think that has been my strong um, strategy for friends and family syndications. Now, for family offices, it's a completely different game, right? It's more
Right.
about you putting the data how they like it and you being introduced to them by very successful investors or connection of people who are already doing business with them. So I think that that's the biggest strategy when it comes to family offices and actually hedge funds too. They want to see that you have completed multiple projects. So I think it depends where you are in the business that you can decide, okay, this is a strategy that maybe I can start with, which is friends and family. This is where a lot of investors start. You don't have to start there right away. But for me, that was my path, right? Friends and family, referrals, networking, some speaking engagements too, when I'm teaching people how to look at real estate very differently, has brought a lot of investors to me. But now with the other more sophisticated model, it takes a different kind of knowledge, it takes a different kind of approach. And normally it's by introductions, or even brokers introduce you to other family offices. That has been my experience.
Yeah, very insightful, that's for sure. So you kind of work both sides of the aisle, family offices, which is kind of quasi-institutional almost, and then private money, right? More
Correct.
high net worth. So interesting. I love your philosophy around that. Well, listen, this has been fascinating this morning. And one point I want to make that I wrote down early on as you were talking about your business and your lifestyle, really kind of, is time freedom. And that's one of the things that I think that this business affords us is time freedom, the ability to travel. Because we go around, we travel, we look at our assets, maybe we spend some other time there, and we get to kind of dictate our schedule. So I think that there's a lot to be said for that, whether you're a passive investor or you're an active investor actively in the business. So obviously you enjoy your time freedom. So
I do. It's funny because what has developed from there, Mike, it's my friends who started as business friends became my closest friends. And sometimes I plan these trips with the girls who are investors, that they have learned, that they have, grow already their path. They have become high net worth individuals in the real estate industry. They
right.
invest with me, I invest with them, and we have become friends in many aspects. We have the time to go and travel and do things together and look at real estate. We tend to geek out, look at opportunities while we enjoy each other companies, whether with what families, our significant others. But it has given me that freedom, and it has given me the freedom that if I want to go back to Puerto Rico and spend a month with my parents, I get to do that. I get to support them when they need me in many aspects of life, either showing myself and be with them, or when it comes to finances too. And that's something I will never regret. Even when I went through a pretty challenging journey in the real estate industry, today that has been the most rewarding thing for me.
Awesome. Good for you. Well, I appreciate you being here today. Your message has definitely been powerful, and I'm sure that the listeners will gain a lot. And I always tell people, I say, hey, listen to these podcasts, but go back and listen to it again, because the second and third time through it is really where you gain some knowledge. Why don't you tell people how they get a hold of you, Jen?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I do have my social media. They can easily find Invest with Jen Maldonado or Cash Her Spark. I do also have a YouTube channel that it's at Jen Maldonado, and they can just get hold of me in there. I also do, we're building a website since this is the first time that we're really growing and promoting, and it's going to be investinherspark.com.
Nice. Awesome. So remember that, everybody, investinherspark.com. And if you have questions for Jen, reach out to her. Jen, thanks for being here today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great day. And I certainly look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing you somewhere along the line at an event or something. So
Thank you for having me, Mike.
and everybody, thanks for being here. Remember, we're here every Saturday morning at 10:30 Central Time. Hope that you've enjoyed this today. Follow us on social media. If you're on YouTube, smash the subscribe button and follow us, because we are always bringing out relevant content for you to learn from and grow with. Look forward to seeing you soon. If I can answer any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.